Welcome back. You are listening to another episode of keepthechange.co.nz's Money Mail. Good to have you tuning in, learning and improving your financial literacy. Before we rip into this week's lesson, I just spotted something really cool on Instagram that I thought I would share with you. Now, I saw that I was tagged in something, so we went and had a look at that, and I see that there is a clip that She's Worth It _NZ has created. And it says, point of view, you're finally debt-free after paying off $39,000. The caption reads, today I'm officially debt-free after making my final student loan payment. What a good feeling that is. I'm sure if you've cleared your student loan, you would know what that is like. It goes on to say, it has been a tough 4 years, and while I am definitely grateful to myself for not giving up, I will always be grateful for Luke at Keep the Change for his generosity in sharing knowledge about personal finance. I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't signed up to his webinar 3 years ago. I can't even really remember what webinar that was, but I just then thought maybe I need to do more webinars. But I've actually had a bit of feedback where people have said that that's how they have come across Keep the Change, through watching the one of the early webinars that I did put together. So cool to see that that was the catalyst for some people. Now they're going to say, it feels so good to have reached this goal after starting with what felt like a huge hole to dig my way out of as a single mum. If you want to know more about my journey, click on the link to my blog in my bio, and you'll also find some resources to get started that are focused on being a divorcee and or single parent starting again from scratch. So 39k in debt, takes 3 years, a single mum, and now sharing some of her lessons as a single mum and a divorcee as well. That, I think, is the ripple effect that I will be most proud of when looking back at the journey of Keep the Change, and also what I am hoping to create, because the goal from the start was to help 100,000 Kiwis improve their financial literacy. Now, if this person then goes on to help another person, then that is another person that I don't necessarily need to reach. And I think that's how we really get to the 100,000, and that's how the 100,000 actually becomes a lot bigger than just 100,000. So shout out to this person, and well done taking so much action. But I like the fact that this is a good lesson where we can look back and go, right, 40 grand in debt, and it's taken 3 years. Now, things take time in finance and financial literacy, but I think because we can get access to money so quickly, credit cards, overdrafts, things like that, and then just the rest of life, the journey to get out of it can feel like it takes so long. And I think it's something that really doesn't get spoken about enough, but something for all of us to be mindful of, and just be patient and accept that things will take time. And recently, some of our clients in the business side of things for Next Advisory, they are on a journey of repaying debt, for instance, and they'll talk about it and, oh, it'll be good to get that cleared, and we'll say, hey, look, that's going to take years. You know that, right? Don't think about that as it'd be great to be debt-free in a year's time. Like, that's not realistic. Not many people just think, oh, I'm going to pay off my house in 2 or 3 years, for instance. I mean, that can be done, but sometimes clearing debt is part of a journey, and it's going to take time because we're trying to clear it with what we have left over. And then we go, well, you know what, I'm going to earn some more, and that's going to enable me to pay it off faster. And then you start to get into the cycle of, okay, you know, what else can I be doing? And you start to see the world differently, and you start to see opportunities. And what may have been a 10-year journey for this person to pay off their student loan gets all the way down to 3. But another person would come along and be like, yeah, oh, fucking big deal, you paid off your loan, and it took you 3 years. Like, that's boring. I want to know how to do it in 3 days or 30 days. And that's where I think people get themselves trapped, and they don't take any action because they're still looking for the fast way to do something instead of just going on the journey, grinding it out. And yeah, we'll stumble and we'll take the wrong turn every now and then whilst doing it, but as long as we can stay committed to it, then we are directionally correct. And that is something that is applicable to all of us, whether it's growing a business, whether it is improving our career, clearing debt, investing, nurturing a child, investing for a child, helping somebody, all those sorts of things. I think we underestimate how long they can take, and there's a good saying in business, it'll always cost more and it'll always take more time. But there's also a saying that you will estimate what you can achieve in a year or even 3 years, but you will significantly underestimate what you can achieve in 5 to 10 years. And I've certainly noticed that when I've done projects that have spanned over 5 years, it just what starts coming your way between year 5 and year 10. And one thing that I try to remind myself when I'm watching content of people that are way ahead of me is just how old they are and how long they've been doing it for. And sometimes it really gets me jacked up because I look at all the stuff that they're doing and then I realize they've been doing it for 25 years and I'm probably 7 years into my journey post quitting my job and going out there and doing different things. And I think, whoa, if I just stay on this path, look at the other things that will be possible for me should I carry on down this path with the different things that I'm doing in my life. So if you're going to compare yourself to other people that are way further ahead of you, be mindful what they've done, how long they've been doing it for, and the reps that they've done compared to the reps that you have done. Let's get into this week's Money Mail because it is a grunty one. 5 tips to become unemployment proof. Now, I started writing this many weeks ago, actually, and I came back and finished it. So I actually did sort of the tips to start with and then thought, okay, how can I make this a little bit less boring and dull? Because there's nothing sexy, I don't think, about becoming unemployment proof and trying to tell the story of how to do that. But it's fucking sexy when you can get yourself to a position that should it happen to you, it doesn't take you into a downward life spiral. So I spent many years working in Taranaki. One of the icons of the region is the beautiful but unforgiving mountain. Tens of thousands of people climb it every year and make it back safe. You head up there prepared and you know what you're getting yourself into. Sometimes our football team, for instance, would go up there in pre-season and you just, you get a lovely day and there's photos at the top of the sun and it just seems like, oh, that's just a casual climb to the top of that mountain. But there are signs that warn you to head back if you don't have everything you need. If you live there, you know this and you respect the mountain. Because just about every year that I was there, I would read in the paper about somebody who went up there and got caught in the weather turning. Now, they needed help and often they needed rescuing. Firstly, how good is it that people will actually go and help people and bring them back and they won't just leave you up there and say, well, we did have a sign at the bottom, so tough shit. And that is, it takes a lot of courage from the people that are skilled and trained and know how to go into a situation like that and rescue somebody. Otherwise, more people would die. Well, unfortunately, people do die climbing that mountain. So tens of thousands of people go up there every year and enjoy it, and it's leisurely, etc. But people die going up that mountain. As much as people can be prepared, the unexpected can happen, and things don't go the way that they think they will for those climbers. Now, in Scouts, there is a saying to be prepared. Now, we're probably sick of hearing that, and it gets thrashed, and it might not be your thing, but that is their motto, be prepared. Now, you and I might not be climbing mountains, but we are in unforgiving economic times. The unemployment rate is currently 4.3% at the end of March 2024. It is projected to rise to over 5%. This means that tens of thousands of Kiwis, not just 2 or 3, tens of thousands of Kiwis, who could still lose their job if this economic wave just keeps going this way, and it certainly looks like it is at the moment. Now, you don't want to be this person and become unemployed, and I don't want you to be either. But chances are it will happen to someone we know in our wider circles. I've already seen it happen in mine, and this week I noticed more Keep the Change followers mentioning redundancy to me when I asked what's getting in the way of your next move. Actually, a few people responded saying, I've just been made redundant. Now, a couple of years ago, that's just about unheard of. And it's, we're in a mountain, an economic mountain where it was just sunny, there's no sign of things turning, and basically people were like, I just can't wait to get up there. And that means in the economic sense of things that people were just instantly wanting to hire. Have you got 50% of the skills? Yeah, you'll do. We just need somebody. So over the last that was probably 3 years ago, but even 3 and 2 years ago, the labour market was so tight, and now we're down the other side of that, and tens of thousands of people are going to lose their job before this economic landslide stops. So you're going to know somebody that this is going to happen to, and you probably already do. And even after releasing this, a couple of people got in touch and said, yep, this is exactly what's happened for me. Now, previously, we've looked at a lot of content on increasing our income and making ourselves recession-proof. Now, part of the reason that I've gone so hard on that is to try and teach people so that something hits with them and they'll take action, and then they take the power back and they see, shit, okay, maybe, just maybe I can do something for myself, or I could be in control of my income, because I genuinely believe that more people in New Zealand could be in control of their income, but we just don't get taught how, and then we're scared to take the risk, we're scared to fail, we're not sure with what, and there aren't many teachers on how to do that, and so we kind of just fall into this trap of thinking that we're not as in control as we realize, and now we have these amazing tools like the internet and working remotely and all sorts at our fingertips, and we could be leveraging them, but there's just not enough thought and talk about that. So, of course, we have thrashed increasing your income, but a lot of these things, they actually cross over into being unemployment proof. But here are some more specific things that you might want to think about. Now, firstly, I think if it's me, what I often do, and so what I want you to do, is scenario plan losing your job tomorrow or income tomorrow. Now, often, this is what I do when I make a large investment, when I make a decision, when I choose to hire somebody. I basically think about, okay, what is the ultimate downside of this? So at the moment, I'm looking at making a investment, and I'm already thinking about, okay, if this whole thing goes tits up, what is my ultimate downside? And I know it's the amount of money that I put into it, and therefore the opportunity cost of what I could do with that. So I start to think about that and just get my mind ready for accepting what that could look like. So I want you to scenario plan losing your job or income tomorrow and it going to absolute zero, or you being told, hey, in 3 or 4 weeks, you're not going to have a role here. So who do you call? What do you do? How do you react? What do you feel? Actually sit there with that and just think about what that would be like. What are you going to do for money? Because as much as we live in a world where people are like, oh, don't chase money and all that shit, yeah, fucking try telling someone that when they've just lost their job. Oh, don't worry, it's not about the money anyway. But, well, how am I going to pay my rent, my mortgage, my car payments, my buy now, pay later, etc.? So who do you call? What do you talk to them about? What do you do? How do you react? How are you feeling? And what do you do for money? Now, I know that this isn't fun to think about, but we want to be prepared as we can. Sometimes thinking through the worst case scenario can be useful to see how we will react, what plans we have, and how quickly we could implement these plans. Now that you're through the uncomfortable mental torment of dealing with that and thinking about it, let's look at some more practical steps we can take to help us soften the fall. Number 1 of 5, have cash set aside. Oh, good one, Luke. Fucking of course. That's not rocket science. I know. But this is the importance of building an emergency fund that can cover at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses, because that gives you a lot of time to know that you can cover those expenses should your life change. Now, I also get that you'll be thinking, well, how do you do that at the moment? People can't, and I'll find work sooner than 3 to 6 months. And I get that. And 1 in 3 Kiwis, don't have $500 in their emergency fund, for instance. But just think about how different it would be if you were to be made unemployed, or even it might not be unemployment. It could be that you get ill or you need to take some time away from work. You know that your work is making you mentally unwell. Think about what decisions you would make that would be different, and who you'd call, what you'd do, how you'd react, and what you'd have to do for money if you had 3 to 6 months of living expenses covered, and you knew that those were covered for 3 to 6 months to give you that breathing space. Now, you're not just going to go out there and stack 3 to 6 months of expenses. And that's, I guess, the piece that people then give up on. But imagine what your life would be like if you could do that. And I've been able to do that. I've been able to go from having no emergency fund, because everything would go into clearing debt and just basically well, if an emergency comes, I'll just get more debt. That was my solution. And now I realize, like, oh man, that was so taxing on my mental state of mind, and then things would happen and you'd back into catch-up mode. Now I have 3 to 6 months of outgoings that I could pay and be comfortable if I didn't have any income coming in. Now, also remember, then I've gone on a business journey too. So I often think about this in terms of business too. Could I keep the businesses that I run, could I keep them going should my income go to zero, and keep it going for 3 to 6 months to help me build a plan of what do I do in this time period. And now it's a very, very freeing feeling to be able to do that. And it enables you to move at a speed of confidence that is very hard to articulate and very hard to understand unless you get to that point. So just think about if you can really get yourself financially sound over your lifetime, not just because we're thinking about it at the moment, over your lifetime, what it would feel like for you if you knew that you had 3 to 6 months of cash just sitting there. It might be offsetting your mortgage, it might be, in a stable investment, for instance, but it's just there in the background. For some people, they would love that peace of mind. For other people, they'd probably get itchy to spend it or then use it to borrow, to get more debt, to leverage up and things. We've all got to understand our own individual money personalities. But imagine the pressure that this would take off you, right? Now, this financial buffer can give you peace of mind and the time needed to find new employment rather than rushing into anything else or the first thing that comes along. Because I think that's what happens for a lot of people. Lose their job or lose a form of income, and it's basically like, I just got to take what I can get, because we haven't done this, which is set cash aside to give us time to think about it. Because if you don't have cash set aside, you've got to basically take what you can get, baby. Your back is against the wall. Now, humans are really good too when their backs are against the wall. They will come out swinging, they will come out fighting, and they will work harder to keep the things that they currently have. And that's why you see so many people say, oh, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, when they got made redundant or when life didn't go their way, because they are forced to then do something different and realize, shit, I can do this. And they end up doing something that they want to be doing, but they didn't even realize that they wanted to be doing that until this happened for them. And I'm going to say for them, not to them. So basically, we can either stack cash to buy ourselves time, or we can accept that if we don't have the cash, then we better be pretty bloody innovative and accept that our back is against the wall and we're going to have to do what we have to do to keep going. Number 2, have a backup form of income you could pivot to via skills and scenario plan that. Remember the recent Money Mail on skills. Develop a secondary skill or side hustle that you can pivot to if necessary. This could be freelance work, part-time gigs, leveraging a hobby that can generate income. It might even just be knowing that you can call an old boss and go back to work for them at some stage if you need a form of income. You don't want to rely on one sole form of income generation for your lifetime. De-risk this with income generating skills. Now, I think I'll do a different Money Mail on 7 streams of income, which is, I think, often what you'll hear on YouTube or on Instagram videos, and people talk about you've got to get multiple streams of income. And I learned about that a long time ago and how few people can actually do that. And I've actually done that across my life and then also in different businesses, to the point where you realize you could have tens of forms of income through different services, products, etc. But you then almost want to narrow back down to, okay, what are the ones to be doing? But as the economy has turned, we've created different forms of service inside Next Advisory to ensure that we still have income streams, because when a economy is frothing, for instance, more business owners are coming to us saying, help me grow, help me expand, help me build a plan for my future, and I want to tackle these big goals. When the economy contracts, they ain't coming to you asking that. That is not what they are interested in. A lot more people are like, I'm stuck. What's going wrong here? And so you basically go from being the growth coach to basically the financial doctor and helping them diagnose what's going on and fix that and working with them to fix it. Now, if you can't identify that, then you can't see how you could build a product or a service to de-risk your income decreasing. Now, that's what I've had to prove to myself that we could do over the last few years, and also de-risk our income decreasing by people not thinking about growth and that sort of thing, by then adding in different things. So a lot of these that I talk about, they are from a personal lens, but they are lessons that I'm picking up in business as well, and then passing on back into our individual lives. So think about what it is that you could turn to if you didn't have your main source of income coming in. Do you have another way that you could make income? If you do, you are going to de-risk how tough your life could be if you were to be made redundant. Number 3, know your budget well. Be stupidly familiar with your monthly expenses, and I mean stupidly familiar at a time like this. You want to know what is going out. You want to know why your cash flow planning that you do for the month breaks and what wasn't in there. Know what you can get rid of if you need to. I had to do this when I went back to broke. So when I went from employment to self-employed and thought, yeah, it won't take too long. Well, it didn't. And so I had to figure out in my budget, which when I say my budget, i.e. my outgoings, what was going out of my bank account, I needed to figure out what could I get rid of. And realistically, I was forced to get rid of a lot of the things that were going out and just completely live differently. But you want to know what levers you can pull. For instance, for me, I knew that I couldn't sustain paying rent, so then I went on a journey of, well, how can I not pay that amount of money each month, and then I would each week, and then I would times it out by 52 and go, right, if that's $200 a week, there's 10 grand that I don't need to come up with after tax to pay my rent. House sitting, that's my thing. That's a lever for me. So think about what levers you can pull when you look at all of your outgoings. Business owners have to master this and make tough decisions at times as well. And guess what? One of the levers that they're currently looking at is staff. You're the lever that they're looking at. Now, unfortunately for you, a lot of business owners are taught that the first thing to think about changing when business isn't going the way that you want it to go is to decrease the head count. Decrease marketing, decrease the head count seem to be the two fashionable things that people gravitate towards. You tell someone, sell your assets to add cash back into the business. I don't want to do that. I don't want to let go of my assets. I'm not saying that all business owners do this, but this is the teaching for a lot of businesses, is basically when times get tough, get rid of people. Fastest thing to do, then you can decrease your wage expense. So the lever in business is wages. Now, this isn't the Bash Business podcast, and I live in that world, but you need to understand that if you're not in that world, that's a lever that businesses look at because they don't have too many. One of them is basically decrease the amount of people. One's get rid of assets, but people don't like letting go of assets. One of them is getting more debt. Well, borrowing against the property, for instance, that's putting their ass on the line, their property on the line. Then we get to see, do they really back what they're doing? The other is not paying the IRD, for instance. But there aren't too many. And the easiest one that people gravitate towards is let's just pay people less or have less people and figure out if we can do more ourselves. So as the economy gets tighter for some of these businesses, you have to understand that if you're an employee, you are the lever that they are looking at, just like you in your individual life will be looking at what expenses could you get rid of. You are looking at it transactionally, not emotionally. But you will feel like it's a very emotional decision should someone tell you that you can't have this role anymore. But I promise you, life is long, and yes, it will hurt if you're to lose your job, but you will bounce back and you will find a way, and you will look back and go, okay, that wasn't the be-all and end-all of my life. And we also are in a time where we know that this is an engineered recession and that this needs to happen to bring inflation down. It's just the rules of the way that it works. I don't make them. People will disagree. It shouldn't be like that. It doesn't need to be like that, but this is what's happening. So we have to be prepared and we have to understand. So knowing where your money goes allows you to make quick adjustments if your income is suddenly reduced. You instantly know, okay, what could I get rid of? Now, if you need to start, use my template in this folder. These are resources from week 2 of Money Mail. Go to the blog on the website, keepthechange.co.nz/blog, go to week 2, and you will find the financial position template, a video walkthrough of how to use it. I do it every month. That's what I call month end. I talk about it all the time. And it looks ugly and it's boring, but I've used this from being in debt, tens of thousands of dollars of debt, to now stacking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So people are like, oh, what's the best app to use to track all that? I don't fucking care about the best app, because I know that I've used this shitty, ugly template and the principles and the habits that it's created me to do. I've used this from negative net worth, i.e. in the statistics of people that don't have any net assets, to now being in the top percentage of net worth for my age and even the country, and I'm still going, and I'm only really just getting started. So make a copy of this and track where your money's going and know where it's going, and then track your assets and your liabilities as well, and do this every month. Get closer to your money, and this stuff will get easier. I promise you that, so trust me. If you don't do that process, I don't know how much I can stress it is so important for you to do. Watch the video under the how to use this tool. It's years old now. It is years old, and you potentially are just finding this podcast. I was making that well before I'd even stacked the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because I knew that it would work, because it got me out of the shit. So I thought, fuck, how powerful is it going to be if I keep doing it with momentum and heading in the right direction rather than heading in the wrong direction or just getting myself afloat again. Number 4, capital letters. Before you get made unemployed, ask around work and see what else you could do to help train or help or train up to become more valuable. When I worked in a distribution center, I wanted to learn how to drive the forklifts, because then there were 2 jobs that I could have at that distribution center. Then once you're on the forklift, if you can get better at that, there's a different type of forklift, and you could work in dispatch or you could work in outbound. So I wanted to then have 3 different or 4 different types of work that I could be doing. So think about what else you could be doing to help. What could you be doing at your job to help? And ask, is there anything else you need me to do? Is there anything I could help with? Is there anything that I could train up on that's going to make it easier for you guys over the next couple of years? Proactively ask your employer what additional skills or tasks you can take on. By making yourself more valuable and indispensable, you reduce the chances of being laid off. This is a gold nugget many people overlook. Number 5, don't give anyone a reason to let you go. If it's tough out there at the moment, watch your mouth, watch your attitude, watch your start and finish times, watch your entitlement, watch your boundaries, watch the whole, oh, my life's about my family, not work, you can get fucked, I'll go to dentists with my kids and doctors whenever I want, and who are you to tell me I can't? I know that's unpopular, but we're not in an abundant economy anymore. We are in a tough one. So the times have changed, and you have to be thoughtful about how you are acting and how you're standing out with your entitlement, your lack of boundaries, your attitude. When you decide to knock off all of those things, you're going to show up differently. So ensure that you're not giving anyone a reason to let you go. I know it's so 1990s apparently, but being a reliable and positive presence at work can make a big difference. Sounds basic, but basic works. Now, I was never let go from any of my employment, but I probably would have from the first job I had out of uni if I carried on and stayed there, because I was not a great long-term employee, because I was not enjoying it. That was on me. Fortunately, I was self-aware enough to know that I needed to get out of there and do something different. Otherwise, maybe I would have a check against my name on my professional career. But I left and chose and found something that I wanted to be doing. And guess what happened when I found those things? I can recall on Saturdays, my boss coming in 2 of the jobs that I am thinking about in my head, basically being like, what the fuck are you doing here? And I am doing work, and I am getting shit done, and I'm not getting paid anything more for it because I'm on a salary. And in their mind, they are literally thinking, why is this guy here? Now, I liked my work, so then it didn't faze me, but I also would use it to take some slack or pressure off me from throughout the week so I could spend time speaking to the other employees or maybe helping them or catching up on things that I would have liked to have done during that week, but I didn't. Now, that came back a little bit to my value that you'll hear me talking about, which is output is greater than input. So I'm trying to think, how can I give more to this role than I get? And I know that not everybody agrees with that. Go there, do the bare minimum, then work on yourself and work on yourself more than you work on your job. I get all of that stuff, and that's all accurate too, but you've got to interpret it correctly, and you've got to think about when you're in that sort of season and when you're not. What it also did for me too is it meant that just like today, when I'm working on a Saturday, when no one gives a fuck that I'm working on a Saturday, well, that's all good and well. That's your choice, yes, but I've worked the muscle to know that I can work when I want to. This week, for instance, I went to a lunch that started at midday and didn't finish till 6, so I technically didn't do any work, but I was networking and building partnerships and learning and speaking to people and understanding what they're doing, and that is a form of work. But for other people, they would be like, well, you're not working. But I also look at that and go, okay, now I need to play catch up from that time. So just be mindful around the fact that we're not in the economy that we used to be. And if you stand out for the right reasons, you're going to stand out really well compared to the people who still think that they're living in the 2021 economy where there was just so much money floating around. You could ask for a pay rise and you could get it with a click of your fingers, and you could say, I'm going to work from home for 16 days of the week, and all of this shit that crept in. And now the economy ain't like that. And you're the lever again. You are the lever that people are looking at going, well, we don't need you anymore, or we need to cut some costs, and you're a fuckwit half the time, so you're going to be on the chopping block. And I know that I'm speaking very directly, and that is almost going to be offensive to some people that love employment rights and all those things. I get it. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be looked after, but let's be real here. There are some people that just absolutely take the piss in every single job, role, career, and it's all about them, and this should be perfect for me. Well, you get burnt out eventually, and I'm not talking burnt out where you can't handle doing the work anymore. I mean, you get gassed out by the company, the business going, nah, you're not on the bus. You're on the bus for yourself only, and right now, we don't need people like that. 3 years ago, in a frothy economy, potentially you were needed, but don't be surprised if you are entitled, have a bad attitude, say you hate the place, speak poorly about it, turn up late, take 5 minutes extra on your breaks. Don't be surprised if you are the first person that is put on the bus. And the unfortunate thing for those types of people is they're the first to raise a personal grievance or say how they were treated unfairly, the workplace should have been more supportive, etc. We don't want to go down that path and that blame, excuse, deny lifestyle. That ain't for us. We don't want to live down there and be like, I wonder if I can get a 10 grand personal grievance out of leaving this job. No, we want to be like, okay, that's unfortunate. I've got some money stacked. I've got some other things that I could do for income. I've got a good skill set. I've got a good attitude. I've got a backup plan. Thanks for the time. I would love a good reference. See you fucking later. I've got my shit sorted. Off I go. Wouldn't that be a better way to be able to live rather than falsely applying for a personal grievance or getting stuck in that they should never, or they've missed a step in the process? Oh, okay. Now, yes, I understand there are laws and things like that, but there's a difference between people who take the piss and people who actually get treated unfairly, and the law was there to look after. So you choose that, and remember, the way that you choose that, karma will come back, and it will make sure that you pay for the way that you act at some stage. So be very, very careful. So shout out to all my people out there that understand this and that are watching their mouth, their attitude, their start and finish times, their break times, their entitlement, the way that they're speaking to people, and making sure that they're not giving an employer or a business a reason to let them go. It's old-fashioned, it's boring, I get that, but like I said, basics work. So when you're going up a dangerous mountain, the weather can turn in a flash. The same thing can happen in your life, in your career. And all of a sudden, what was just a gentle stroll up the picturesque mountain for a couple of selfies, etc., can turn into a tumble down a mountain where you're thinking, holy shit, where's this going to end? So just be mindful how that could happen for you. Maybe the scouts are onto something with this whole be prepared motto. This could help you avoid a downward spiral in other areas of your life due to the shock loss of a job. By thinking ahead and taking proactive action with these 5 steps, you can make yourself more resilient to job loss. And it's not just about being able to get into that next role or find something else. It's about not going on that downward spiral that takes you to the pub, and it takes you to your friend as well who lost their job at one stage and they hated their employer and now they hate all employers and they think, what's the fucking point? And they have now no direction in their life and it's everybody else's fault, and you go around there and you're, yeah, let's play games for 8 hours and yeah, the whole thing's broken. Oh, if Labour stayed in, it wouldn't have happened, etc., etc. And you live there. You don't want to live there. So getting yourself unemployment proof isn't just about ensuring that you keep your role if you so want to keep it. It is about keeping you away from that sort of environment that will take you on a downward spiral in your life that will fuck you up way more than just losing your job. Be bold, as always. You're one of over 10,250 recipients, 6,700 on LinkedIn, 65,000 downloads in May. This could be a very important one. And if anything, I may have done it a year too late, but there's been plenty of chat, if you have been listening, about taking this seriously and getting ready for the economic time that we're in. But there are still tens of thousands of people who will lose their jobs. And do this thinking as well, not just for yourself, but in your household, whether you've got children, whether they're struggling to find a job, whether they could lose their job, whether you have a partner. What would happen if your partner lost their job? Have these realistic conversations and think about how much you could adapt should this happen to you. Like I say, I hope it doesn't, but I know it will for some of us. So if it does, I hope that we are prepared, or at least as prepared as we can be. Be good. See you next week.